do. So that was 2019. Since then, according to Wallace Wells, things have improved considerably. Great news. He says, and he's not the only one who says this, that we are converting to green energy worldwide at a much faster rate than seemed possible just 5 years ago. So that we may very well be able to avoid the truly awful outcomes that he wrote about in his book. Now, it even seems possible that if we do a little better than we're now doing, we actually could get to zero emissions by 2050, which is the current goal. And even if we didn't improve and sort of went along as we're going now, we might get there by 2070. And so this is what Wallace Wells, with his guest on the show, a really great climate scientist named Kate Marvell, that's what they were saying in the podcast. Of course, we all know that where there's good news, there's bad news. The bad news is that the negative effects of global climate change are more various, deeper, more rapid, and worse than projected. And really hard to predict. The last few years, everybody knows, have been the hottest ever on Earth since we started measuring. Last summer, just this summer now coming to a close, people died of heat exhaustion in Phoenix, or if they didn't die, they fell down on the sidewalk and went to the burn unit because the sidewalk was 180 degrees on their bare skins. But part of the reason for this awful heat is the normal cyclical El Nino effect, which means that in a few years, without El Nino, the heat could let up. And El Nino is a pretty predictable phenomenon. But there are all kinds of unpredictable things that happen all the time that makes things better or worse than expected. And all the models, though they're accurate based on the data available, are always wrong. Of course, one way or the other. This reminds me of an amazing experience I had years ago when I first got a car with a computer in it. The car was so smart, it could tell me how many miles I could go on the amount of gas I had in my tank. And one time I was driving to Tassajara, and I was really confident because as I started up the 14-mile Tassajara road, the computer said I had a range of something like 100 miles, no problem. But after driving up the steep mountain road for about 5 or 6 miles, suddenly the computer had a drastic change of heart. And it said, you have a range of whatever it was, 25 miles. And I was shocked. What is wrong with this computer? Why is it so fickle? But of course, it's obvious, right? Computers will predict the future based on the past, right? And my computer was in the car was accurately projecting a future that would have occurred if the pattern of the past had remained the same. But the pattern of the past never remains the same because time is alive. It's not mathematical, it's living. And unexpected things are always happening to make things better or worse. And we found this out to our great consternation during COVID. we had all kinds of information giving us a snapshot of a probable future based on available data. But it was like your head was spinning because the snapshot is immediately succeeded by the next snapshot because there's more data always, every day. All snapshots are momentary and essentially imaginary. And the more snapshots you take, the more you know. And the more you know, the clearer it becomes that there's really a lot you don't know. Because nothing ever stays the same. And because nothing ever stays the same, nothing is predictable. That is a wonderful thing, but it's also deeply uncomfortable. So on the podcast, Kate Marvell was saying that the truest and probably most difficult thing about global climate change is the uncertainty. And the ability to live happily in the midst of uncertainty so that you have enough balance to act effectively without freaking out has always been forever an important life skill. But when it comes to climate change, it may be the most important skill because among the many unpredictable things, the most unpredictable thing about climate change, and possibly the most destructive thing about it and the most unsettling thing about it, is how human beings and human societies are going to react. So the ability to live happily and confidently with uncertainty is now more important than ever. And this is why we're all here today, isn't it? Because we know that our practice really, really helps us with this. In zazen, we are training in the experience of seeing how everything comes and goes always. And we learn to see the beauty in this and not be afraid of it. And that's why I really believe that just to do zazen, just to practice, is part of what we need to do to contribute to the world of the future. Sometimes it seems like a long time, but the truth is a human lifespan is quite short. The lifespan of the earth is quite long. The damage that has been done by the burning of fossil fuels will take centuries, possibly millennia, to work itself through the natural healing processes of the planet. And what that working through is going to look like in the lifespan of this or that human generation, nobody really knows. And no doubt it will come as a surprise. I think we could, with justice, blame some people for this. For instance, oil company executives and their allies who knew the science but willfully obscured it and are still, to protect their businesses, dragging their feet, not really cooperating as they should. On the other hand, every one of us has benefited by the technological growth and development that has been based on burning fossil fuels. With hindsight, you could imagine how we might have done a lot better, but we were always going to burn up lots of those buried dinosaur carcasses and the carcasses of the other 90% of species that were suddenly destroyed many millions of years ago when a big meteor struck the Earth. That catastrophic climate event created a gigantic pool of fossils. We were never not going to burn them up to create the modern world. But amid all the uncertainty and fatalism, one thing is very clear. Burning fossil fuels warms the planet. And warming the planet creates many harmful effects for living things. So we really do have to get to zero emissions as quickly as we can. And although now no one who looks into this seriously can deny it, still, there are a lot of people who prefer not to look into it, who don't want to worry about it, and who would, if they were able, ignore it. I also would like to ignore it. I would love to not think about this. It's not the most pleasant thing to think about, and I apologize for, instead of cheering you up, talking about this grave matter. It's nice to think about other things, right? But we can't. We have a moral obligation to keep the pressure up on ourselves and our friends, and through us and them, on large companies and governments who can do the most to cause emissions reduction. And even though going to zero emissions won't necessarily, noticeably, in a short human lifespan, change that much in terms of climate, it is going to immediately change things for the better. And everyone will notice, because green fuel is clean. Fossil fuel is dirty. It ruins the air, the water. It kills a lot of people and plants and animals. So apart from carbon in the atmosphere, a green world is going to feel better, even if the summers are still hotter than we would like, and there are still wildfires burning. And we human beings are going to feel a lot better. We're going to be healthier, we're going to be happier, and we're going to be very proud of ourselves, knowing we did the right thing. So what I'm saying is that thinking about the earth, appreciating the earth, is a crucial part of our practice. Awakening means that we realize there is no earth out there that is not in here. It means that we understand that we and the earth are one continuous, ever-changing being. And that's why climate change is such a great and noble challenge to our human intelligence, to our capacity for compassion and unselfishness. I sometimes think that the earth is so wise that she created us for the purpose of confronting this challenge, so that we and the earth could be perfected by it. And although certainly he never heard of human-caused climate change, the Buddha understood this very well. When he was on his enlightenment seat and was in the middle of his dark, dark night, confronted by Mara, the evil one, who assailed him with his minions of guilt, sensuality, attachment, clinging, fear, and shouted at him, "Here are my forces, where are yours?" The Buddha responded wordlessly by touching the earth with this famous earth-touching gesture, which is the gesture behind you of the Buddha on the altar. The Buddha was saying, "The earth is my champion. The earth is my protector. I am the earth, and the earth is me. And the earth made me to express awakening, compassion, and wisdom. That's why I'm here on this seat, and that's why nothing can defeat me." And at that moment, the earth shook, and Mara ran away. Dogen's essay called Kaisei Sanshoku, Valley Streams, Mountain Colors, begins with the awakening poem of Su Dongbo, the famous Chinese poet. It's a short poem. The sounds of the valley stream are his long, broad tongue. The forms of the mountain are his pure body. All night long I hear the murmuring of myriad sutras. How explain this in the morning? This poem is saying that the whole of the world, all of the world, but probably most clearly what we call the natural world, expresses the boundless and ineffable Buddha truth. And the sound of the stream really is, when you truly hear it, the Buddha's broad tongue speaking. And the form and color of the mountain really is, when you can see it, Buddha's noble, enduring body. The whole world is a sutra, verse after verse after verse. And this is so perfectly clear when you know it, and impossible to explain. The earth is not just stuff waiting to be exploited, a mere backdrop to the human spectacle. This whole bright world is an expression of the deepest and inmost truth. And that's what makes it sacred and profound. And I think the reason that we in the Western world have been so reckless with the bounty of the earth is that we have insufficiently respected the earth. We haven't seen it for what it is. We've understood it as an object for our use. And in the process, and this is really important, we have made ourselves and one another also into objects. And that's why our individual brokenness, any one of us, and the gross historical and present injustices between us and climate insanity. These are really the same thing. They are the result of taking what is sacred and whole, including ourselves and each other, as partial and profane. And this is why we are practicing to heal this terrible, terrible, deep wound, to correct this grave mistake. When you think about Dogen's understanding of zazen, you realize he's telling us that zazen is the great healing. Because when we sit in zazen with faith and commitment, even if our zazen is disturbed or messy, as it so often is, it doesn't matter. Just to sit is to enter into this great healing. In the moment of sitting, we are not objectifying ourselves. We're not objectifying one another or the world. We are becoming Buddha mind, the mind of wholeness, unity, sacredness, and love. And when we live a life in which zazen is central to our living, we're training ourselves day by day by day in this profound view and experience. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Chicago at the World Parliament, World Parliament of Religions. And I was part of a group that I belong to called the Elijah Interfaith Institute. And at the Parliament, we created and performed a climate repentance ceremony. So we got up on the big stage and did this ceremony. Repentance is an important practice in all religions, including non-theistic religions like Buddhism. Repentance means to recognize errors, to deeply feel their painfulness with sorrow and grief, and based on that, to resolve to do better. And there were lots of us on the stage participating in this ceremony, men and women, clergy from almost all religious traditions, all of us decked out in our regalia of many, many different colors, from black to yellow to orange to gray and every color. But we all had the same feeling for the earth. So I would like to actually practice a part of this ceremony with you this morning, if you would be willing. And if you're not willing, you can try to ignore me and just breathe. And it's a very simple thing. I'm just going to read some words, and after I read, it's divided into sections. And at the end of each section, I'll ring the bell. And when I ring the bell, that's a signal for you to return to your body and your breath and just feel what you feel, having heard the words. And the words are all Thich Nhat Hanh's words. We had some wonderful sisters from the Plum Village community in our group, and the two of them performed this ceremony, this part of the ceremony, as I will do now. This beautiful, bounteous, life-giving planet we call Earth has given birth to each one of us, and each one of us carries the Earth within every cell of our body. We and the Earth are one. The Earth is our mother, nourishing and protecting us in every moment, giving us air to breathe, fresh water to drink, food to eat, and healing herbs to cure us when we are sick. Every breath we inhale contains our planet's nitrogen, oxygen, water vapor, and trace elements. And when we breathe with mindfulness, we can experience our interbeing with the Earth's delicate atmosphere, with all the plants, and even with the sun, whose light makes possible the miracle of photosynthesis. With every breath, we can experience communion. With every breath, we can savor the wonders of life. We need to change our way of thinking and seeing things. We need to realize that the Earth is not just our environment. The Earth is not something outside of us. Breathing with mindfulness and contemplating your body, you realize that you are the Earth. You realize that your consciousness is also the consciousness of the Earth. Look around you. What you see is not your environment. It is you. Great Mother Earth. Whatever nationality or culture we belong to, whatever religion we follow, whether we're Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, or atheists, we can all see that the Earth is not inert matter. She is a great being who has herself given birth to many other great beings, including Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, prophets and saints, sons and daughters of God and humankind. The Earth is a loving mother, nurturing and protecting all peoples and all species without discrimination. When you realize the Earth is so much more than simply your environment, you'll be moved to protect her in the same way as you would yourself. This is the kind of awareness, the kind of awakening that we need. And the future of the planet depends on whether we're able to cultivate this insight or not. The Earth and all species on Earth are in real danger. Yet if we can develop a deep relationship with the Earth, we'll have enough love, strength, and awakening to change our way of life. Falling in love. We can all experience a feeling of deep admiration and love when we see the great harmony, elegance, and beauty of the Earth. A simple branch of cherry blossom, the shell of a snail, or the wing of a bat, all bear witness to the Earth's masterful creativity. Every advance in our scientific understanding deepens our admiration and love for this wondrous planet. When we can truly see and understand the Earth, love is born in our hearts. we feel connected. This is the meaning of love, to be at one. Only when we've truly fallen back in love with the earth will our actions spring from reverence and the insight of our interconnectedness. Yet many of us have become alienated from the earth. We are lost, isolated, and lonely. We work too hard. Our lives are too busy. And we are restless and distracted, losing ourselves in consumption. But the earth is always there for us, offering us everything we need for our nourishment and healing. The miraculous grain of corn, the refreshing stream, the fragrant forest, the majestic snow-capped mountain peak, and the joyful birdsong at dawn. True happiness is made of love. Many of us think we need more money, more power, or more status before we can be happy. We're so busy spending our lives chasing after money, power, and status that we ignore all the conditions for happiness already available. At the same time, we lose ourselves in buying and consuming things we don't need, putting a heavy strain on both our bodies and the planet. Yet much of what we drink, eat, watch, read, or listen to is toxic, polluting our bodies and minds with violence, anger, fear, and despair. As well as the carbon dioxide pollution of our physical environment, we can speak of the spiritual pollution of our human environment, the toxic and destructive atmosphere we're creating with our way of consuming. We need to consume in such a way that truly sustains our peace and happiness. Only when we're sustainable as humans will our civilization become sustainable. It is possible to be happy in the here and now. The bread in your hand is the body of the cosmos. We need to consume in such a way that keeps our compassion alive. And yet many of us consume in a way that is very violent. Forests are cut down to raise cattle and beef or to grow grain for liquor, while millions in the world are dying of starvation. Reducing the amount of meat we eat and alcohol we consume by 50% is a true act of love for ourselves, for the earth, and for one another. Eating with compassion can already help transform the situation our planet is facing and restore balance to ourselves and the earth. Nothing is more important than brotherhood and sisterhood. There's a revolution that needs to happen, and it starts from inside each one of us. We need to wake up and fall in love with Earth. We've been Homo sapiens for a long time. Now it's time to become Homo conscious. Our love and admiration for the Earth has the power to unite us and remove all boundaries, separation, and discrimination. Centuries of individualism and competition have brought about tremendous destruction and alienation. We need to reestablish true communication, true communion with ourselves, with the earth, and with one another as children of the same mother. We need real community and cooperation. All civilizations are impermanent and must come to an end one day. But if we continue our current course, there's no doubt that our civilization will be destroyed sooner than we think. The earth may need millions of years to heal, to retrieve her balance and restore her beauty. She will be able to recover. But we humans and many other species will disappear until the earth can generate conditions to bring us forth again in new forms. Once we can accept the impermanence of our civilization with peace, we will be liberated from our fear. Only then will we have the strength, awakening, and love we need to bring us together. Cherishing our precious earth, falling in love with the earth, is a matter of personal and collective happiness and survival. Excuse me. So, there is no limit to the caring of a bodhisattva. So let's close today with a moment with a bell of thinking about what I know we're all concerned with, this great earthquake a couple of days ago in Morocco. All the people who've been killed, displaced, injured. Let's breathe with them for a few moments and then we'll stop. Thank you. So we have about 15 minutes in case there's something you want to bring up. And it doesn't have to be about what I just said. Could be, doesn't have to be. However, I guess it's better if it's something about practice, like if it was about the football game yesterday or something. Better not to bring that up here. You could bring that up with your friends, but something about practice. So we have a microphone. If anybody raises your hand, Valerian will get the microphone to you. and I'll be happy to respond if I can.
Thank you, Norman. Very touched by your words today and your call. And I'm very moved by this pointer of the earth is not the environment, to thinking of it as the environment as opposed to our life or ourself. And I think part of my, we live here, those of us at Green Gulch and those maybe who like to visit, it's easy to think of the earth as like at Green Gulch. The earth is this kind of earthy place. And I think there's something in this pointer about it's just us. It is ourself. We are it. And I'm thinking about, the walls and tiles and how they show up in our sutras. It's not just the trees and the earth, it's the walls and the tiles. And I think of maybe people in cities, people in cars thinking they have to go somewhere to be at the earth or look past, look below the concrete to the earth. And I just wonder if you can speak a little bit to that and how that relates to this teaching of really being our connection and enacting a life based on that connection.
Yeah, thanks. I forgot to say in the beginning that I am very pleased and honored to have not one, but two abbots with me this morning. Thank you for coming, guys. Yes, it's funny, my wife Kathy is away, and when she goes away, I plunge deeply and insanely into the world of poetry. And I've been writing a lot of poems, and I'm writing a series of poems called Earth Odes. Because in our Dharma seminar, we're asking people to write Earth Odes. I recommend it for all of you. But I'm writing my Earth Odes, and I realize what isn't an Earth Ode, I mean, every physical matter itself in any form is the earth. Absolutely. What is, literally everything in this world that is material, or appears to be material anyway, what we would call material, is made of earth elements. Literally, there's no element that anywhere that isn't an earth element. Everything is the earth. Of course it is. And the earth made us, and we made all this stuff, but it's earth. But it is true that I think people do get worn out from the human environment, right? So they want to come to Green Gulch because there's not so many streets here, and not so many cars, and not so many people rushing around purposefully. Everybody in Green Gulch is just wandering around in a fog, literally. Too much zazen. They don't even know where they are or what's going on, And that's refreshing, right? Because the rest of us think there's something that we have to be doing immediately. Otherwise, all is lost. But what is not the body? Literally, the body is the earth. I mean, it really is true, The earth elements, I mean, if we had a fast forward photography, we could see how earth elements gather together, and they make this person here, and this person is around for a very brief amount of time, and then you could just see it on the film. The earth elements will return, like we say in the poem, return to their own nature, like a mother taking to its baby. We're going to return literally to the earth. There's no death, right? Everything just moves around. It's all earth. And and of course, ideally, we would know that all the time in the middle of a big city. And I think we do on some level. But somehow, I think, especially in Zen and in Chinese Buddhism, and also in America, it turns out, there is a kind of nature mysticism, or some of our great writers have been naturalists who have gone into the wilderness and found a tremendous sense of spirituality among the trees and sky. But you're right. I mean, I think in our tradition, we recognize that it's everywhere. It's everywhere and everything. But wouldn't it be different to be you if you really thought that you were just a temporary coming together of elements that were not yourself, and that your sense of being you was just a kind of beautiful thought that arose in the middle of all this material? Then it wouldn't be so hard to be you anymore. You would appreciate it. Oh my God, there comes that ridiculous thought again. There comes that stupid way of being unhappy all over again. Unbelievable. What a miracle. What a miracle. Thank you, Earth, for creating this bizarre miracle. I could even tell my friends about it. Way in the back. I'm in the very back corner.
Good morning, Norman.
Good morning.
I feel quite complicated today.
Oh,
Um, any encouraging words on how to practice with feeling complicated?
oh, that's a great question. Yeah. Well, yes. I bet you're not the only complicated one around here. You know, I've been thinking about this very thing. And I think that the best way is to train yourself. And this is where Zen practice is so genius, especially if you do it like in a monastery or at Green Gulch or someplace where that's what's going on. It's so genius at reminding you that everything depends on the body, meaning the earth, but the body, for you, the body. So to come back all the time to the wisdom and the simplicity of the body, to train yourself in that and make that a habit, will really undo all your problems. For example, I live about 1.5 miles from here, and I drove over here this morning. And while I was driving over here, I was driving with one hand, and the other hand was on my right thigh. And as I was driving, I was just feeling that experience of having my right hand on my right thigh. And all week long, while I've been crashing around in the poetry clouds, I've been noticing that when I walk across the kitchen floor, which is tiled, my soft shoes make a certain sound. But then when I walk across the carpet, the sound is very different. And the temperature in the different rooms in which I might walk in my house is slightly different, and my body can feel that. That's why in Zen, one of the practices that we do that I'm very sad that because of the circumstances of our community, everyday Zen, we don't do this anymore. It's very hard to do. But here you can do it. You can practice oryoki eating. It's a ritualized form of eating a meal. And when you practice oryoki, you pay attention to everything about the meal, the serving, the eating, the washing the bowls. So paying attention to things physically and training yourself to do that over and over again. I mean, we're all so complicated that when you hear somebody say that, it seems ridiculous. Like, what? What does that have to do with anything? I got real problems. I'm going to pay attention to the way I walk across a room when I'm depressed or upset about my relationship. What? Well, you just have to take my word for it. Believe me, pay attention to everything, especially your body, and you'll see that everything is different. everything changes. You still have the same complicated thoughts, but you just don't invest in them anymore because you realize they just come out of your body. They just come out of your history. They just come out of everything that's ever happened to you. They come and they go. You jump on board with them and waggle them around, you'll make big problems. You let them be there, let them go, return to your body, and it's okay. So anyway, it takes some doing, though. That's the trouble. You really have to do it. That's why it's much easier in a temple. The whole temple life is set up to facilitate that. But that's what happens. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. The Mindfulness Sutra says that. So thanks for the question. It's the most important question, isn't it? Thank you. I think that's the end anyway. I don't see any more hands, but that's about the time we're supposed to end.
Norman, could I add one thing?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate the kind of fact-based statements you made in the talk about the planet. I think we're really living in a time where news outlets figured out that the more negative news they spread, the more engagements they get and the more advertisement they have, the more revenue they make. So I feel like a lot of people are mostly focused on the bad news, getting bombarded with that, and kind of lose track a little bit of, it's a very one-sided view that I think most media outlets present of the world. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I have the subscription to the New York Times, which I can read on my telephone, and I read it all the time. And I think about all the New York Times journalists who now are, to me, young people. All the journalists in the New York Times are very young people. And I really feel for them, I think that they're really scared and upset, and they're writing out of that feeling, and they're very good journalists and they're very thorough. But I can feel their heart and I can feel their confusion, every day in the paper when I read it. It's very sad, this world, but very beautiful. Look at how beautiful all of you are. Can you tell? Look. So many beautiful people. Did you want to say something? One last thing. She has one last thing to say.
Thank you so much for your talk. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to ask a kind of a practical question about, I noticed, for example, like seeing somebody drink out of a plastic water bottle is one example of many in a day where I might have this kind of flare-up reaction and I get really contracted with fear and have a lot of judgment, and I have to really talk myself down from that. And so just in a practical way, I see when I get more fearful and more tight, I'm less available. And so just really curious how to work with that stuff that manifests. I don't want to go toward fear. I actually want to find a way to be helpful and supportive in the situation. And so something like that. Yeah. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Do you do practice? Are you a practitioner of Zen or some other form of?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do a lot of body-mind connection, just coming to my weight and breath.
Yeah, I think that taking care of oneself in this way is an art. You have to get good at it. So you have to see, that when you feel upset when you see somebody drinking out of a plastic water bottle, you know that that's no good. So you need even though people shouldn't be drinking water out of plastic water bottles, still, you need to take care of yourself. So yes, to have a regular spiritual practice and to focus one's life on that, I think there's a way, even in this crazy world, to say, okay, what's my focus? What's my center? My practice is my center. Have a life in which choices are made based on that. That's number one. And then the details of maybe you notice that there are some days in which you feel that way, that negative, horrible way a lot, and other days in which you don't. So you think, well, why am I so upset today? What's going on today? And then on that day, you take care of yourself. Oh, that's a sign. Thank you. Thank you, body, mind. You're very smart. You're showing me today in my reaction to this poor guy, innocent guy, drinking a little water out of a plastic bottle. What does he know, you know? In my reaction to that, I see, thank you very much for pointing out to me that I'm in need of some care here. So I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z that I was planning to do the rest of the day. Today, I'm going to do these things to take care of myself. So it's almost like you take those reactions not as a mistake or a problem, but you take them as a good information for you. It's like a little indicator. Oh, time to take care of myself a little more carefully today. Oh, tomorrow, well, it's not so bad. The next day, oh. So you do that. You're always looking and watching and taking care of yourself. So you can do that. I know you can. So little by little. I mean, let's be honest, none of us are going to avoid unpleasantness, difficulty, and freaking out now and then. You know, it's going to happen. We just need to know how to be okay with it and adjust. And here's where, like Ringo Starr said, I get by with a little help from my friends. So it's not just you, right? Because spiritual practice always involves Sangha. Sangha has teachers and friends and wise people who can help you, remind you basically of what you already know. So be in a community that can help you with that. And then all together, you know, we'll pull through. We'll be okay. Yeah. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be over here and hang out with you guys. So please do take care of yourselves and all the people that you love. Nothing is better for you than to take care of others. Thanks.